Donna Zakowska is an Emmy winner for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, among 5 nominations for that series, including for this final season. She also won an Emmy for John Adams, and other projects have included Kate and Leopold, Empire Falls, and Sons of Liberty. Donna, I guess, just for this final season, I wanted to ask you how you approach the kind of the challenge of the jumping through time, and like in terms of not just in terms of Midge's like older looks, but also for Joel and Susie as well.
Well, I think the thing is, the challenge was we were really condensing a lot into this last season. And so the challenge will always be that you don't want to lose the character. It doesn't matter if someone is 40 years older, 50 years older. The important thing is like you have to sort of live their development in how you create the costumes. And it was sort of really important that they remained credible and constant with the way they had been throughout the entire series. And so that was really the challenge, how far to go in the aging process, but how to absolutely never lose what were the essential and the charming qualities of each of these characters in the series.
Yeah, I think you definitely accomplished that. The episode you're nominated for is Susan. It has one of my favorite set pieces, the Building New York Expo, which actually the opening of the episode is basically just like a giant musical, and there is like so many musical elements in the episode. Obviously later as well, it seems like you're like it is like basically like a Broadway production level like kind of thing, I guess. Like how did you like approach that, and like how did you kind of like make sure that like that seems like a lot of complications certainly to make all those costumes and make sure they're all like a period appropriate, but I guess how did you start and like kind of figure that out?
Well, there's no question that this was like a little bit like doing a Broadway musical on film. And as we started working on it, because you never know in the beginning where you're going, it seemed to escalate more and more and more. That entire sequence, where we have the garbage ladies that come alive and the town and it just felt, having a theater background, it was, and a dance background. It was really, something that I could really play upon in terms of doing that. And that was sort of fun for me. And the odd thing about it too was that while I was sort of finishing this up, I began working on what was really my first Broadway musical, New York, New York. So it suddenly seemed like, my entire year in life was literally about a musical, and it wasn't something I was like, counting on. But since I've always loved movement and dance and fabric moving, it was really sort of fun, to be able to be that animated, in the filming. But it was very much like doing a theater piece in the middle of doing, Mrs. Maisel, and I think I kept saying to Amy, I think you want to do a musical, don't you? This is where we're leading, isn't it? But it was a bit of a surprise, but it was really a great way to end it in a way. And then the way it sort of, pulled into New York, New York was an especially nice sort of connection for me.
Do you have to like do, I mean, when you're saying like you have obviously New York, New York, which I've seen, it was a great show. I did enjoy it so much. I guess like, did you also like, do you have to, is there a difference between like doing like the musical costumes for film or TV, right, than it is for stage? And do they have to like, are there different, like, do they need to look different, or because they're going to be picked up on camera versus like, are you thinking about that when you're doing the costumes for that versus like something that's just on stage?
Well, to a degree, but not that much, because, ultimately there are, certain fabrics, there's certain types of colors, there are certain interests that I have when I do a costume. And I always sort of feel whatever, I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of maintain that. Maybe if you're doing an opera and it's really at a great distance, then I think you have to really, have a really bold, very bold approach to those costumes. But it really, for me, wasn't that different because, I felt that the costume always has to have the integrity of the elements that are important to me. And I don't, suddenly, say to myself, oh my God, I'm doing theater versus film. And it was interesting because moving from that to the Broadway show, I really sort of was very consistent in terms of the types of fabrics I used. And really sort of a little bit went against that sort of classic Broadway idea of putting people in polyester or not, so this season of Maisel was like this enormous warm up for me. Not only, it was like getting to do that, but it was hard to foresee that there was going to be this sort of connection,
Yeah.
So it was really great. I mean, I come from a dance background, so I love movement with clothes. It's something I really think about a lot, actually.
Yeah. So this episode also, I think we have a lot of Hetty, obviously played by Nina Ariande. And how did you think of, or how did you approach her costuming, especially as a new character we've kind of not obviously seen before this season? And like, how did you think about her and how she should look, certainly in this episode, or in the Susan episode, at least?
Well, the thing is, what was interesting about her, in a way, she was like the hidden factor. There was always this sort of question about Susie's sexuality, or, was she gay? Was she not gay? Who knows? Still, who knows? But the thing is that it was just important that she looked beautiful and seductive, and that in a lot of ways it really enhanced Susie, because you really saw there was this very, sort of female attraction, and in a way, Susie's attraction to this woman who was very attractive. And so, it was important that she was sophisticated, important that she was, I tended to make her look a little bit, graphic and a bit stylish for, in the period. So it would be a contrast to Susie, but I also wanted to some way sort of link it. If she was strong, if she looked like a strong character, you really got a bit of a revelation into who Susie was, which was something that always was a little bit mysterious in the series, So that I liked that opportunity of being able to sort of say a little bit more about Susie than we had seen in the past. And it gave a little closure also to the character.
Yeah, for sure. The other person I love Gordon Ford. I love Reed Scott. He looks so good, and I think he just looks great. I think you have him in like his off camera looks, I think, are amazing. He has like a blue cardigan at one, you know what I mean?
Yes,
He just looks like, it's just like so great. Clothes look amazing on him too. I think like he just like wears everything incredibly well. And I guess like, how did you kind of approach Gordon and like thinking about him for this season as well?
Well, I did a lot of research with Johnny Carson and a lot of these hosts, from the period, in terms of basically his wardrobe was designed and except for the sweaters, and built. So because there a lot of times you look at the research, you see these funny checks and all of these sort of odd patterns, and in reality, you don't really quite want that. You want to take that and then bring it to another level, something that's even a little bit better, And so looking for the sweaters was a big deal because it would have been pretty tricky in our time frame to knit that many sweaters. So I put a lot of effort into finding, those strange casual sweaters that these talk hosts used to wear. And, they were actually like sort of in a lot of ways very fashionable and graphic and sort of stylish by modern standards. But it was sort of important for me to try to find those. And that took a lot of effort. So it was really that's where I did use some vintage elements, which I don't tend to use as much. And then, combining it with the palette of the clothing and the suits that I built for him. And he is really incredibly elegant, I must say. And he's someone who just makes it work. I mean, you put it on him and there he is. He just, he was really a natural for that character, I have to say.
He looks like he was just walked out of the era. You know what I mean? Like he really does.
It's true. I loved looking at him every day. I just, like, he was so that character. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Really amazing. We have to wrap up there, but Donna Zakowska, an Emmy winner for Mrs. Maisel, a nominee again this year. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot. And thank you for having me here.